Welcome to Eye on Innovation, brought to you by the OIS podcast. I'm your host, Carey Powers. We are on location here at the OIS conference in San Diego, and we're getting an insider's look at the innovators who are transforming our field. Here with me is Alex Lopez, Chief Commercial Officer at Ace Vision, an ophthalmic laser device company developing touchless eye laser therapy for patients with presbyopia. Welcome to the OIS podcast, Alex.
Thank you for the invitation, Carey. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to hear about this. I'm your target market here as a presbyo myself. We all know it's the single largest ophthalmic indication. Tons of just activity and interest in presbyopia in recent years. We've had presbyopia drops enter the market. So I would love to hear from you, talk about the unmet need and how you see this laser therapy fitting into that landscape.
Yeah, it is a big market, specifically emmetropic presbyopes. They really don't have a solution to have the convenience and the lifestyle that they want. They go to the surgeon and they get referred over to glasses and contacts, and that's still the majority of the market. That's really the only thing that's recommended to patients. So we're excited to fit into that market, the emmetropic presbyopes, and offer a new solution for patients, but have doctors offer something in the continuum of care. In a lifetime of therapy for a patient and filling in that gap.
Yeah. Excellent. So how does, and I'm going to say this very carefully, laser scleral microporation, how does that work?
Yeah, laser scleral microporation, we refer to it as LSM. And essentially it's an Irby and YAG laser. So our device is an Irby and YAG laser, and it's applied to the patient on the sclera. So it's performed outside the visual axis. We don't touch the cornea or the lens, and it creates micropores on the sclera. It's visible under a microscope, but not visible to the naked eye. Essentially what it's doing is presbyopia is a biomechanical problem with refractive consequences. And so what happens as we age, the lens becomes stiffer. I think we all know that. But also the sclera gets stiffer as well. So the micropores make the sclera more flexible, restoring biomechanical function of the eye, and the patient gets a restoration of their vision back to where it was before.
Okay, so tell us about the clinical trials and the data that you're seeing thus far.
Well, we have Dr. Bobby Yang out of the Philippines, completed a 2-year study, 50 patients, 100 eyes, excellent results, where we found patients got out of their glasses, and that was sustained over the course of 2 years. So we meet any criteria that potentially a governing body might want for approval. So we're excited about that. So it gives a clear path, and patients are getting overall a wonderful experience.
Congratulations. That sounds like really promising data.
Yeah.
So walk me through the patient experience. I'm familiar with LASIK, had LASIK, almost 20 years ago. So how is it different from LASIK in terms of what the patient experiences?
So this is minimally invasive. It's done in the office. Patients come in, we call it a lunchtime treatment. So patient will come in, we'll lay down similar to LASIK, and we'll perform LSM treatment on the patient. 15 minutes in and out of a room. Laser time is less than 1 minute per eye, and they're back to their daily activities. In fact, Dr. Jackson performed a treatment on a patient in one of our clinical trials. The driver that drove him there did the procedure, and then drove him right back to their hotel. He was back to his daily activities, and the next day he was able to read. We have a picture of the patient reading and didn't need his readers anymore.
Wow. So you've got sites in the U.S. now?
That was outside the U.S. He traveled down to
very good.
outside the U.S.
Okay, very good. That's really exciting. As your target market, I'm very interested in this.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question. I'm really interested in the market research. What have patients told you about their receptivity to do a laser procedure to get rid of their reading glasses?
Yeah, so I think the patients overall, they're very happy overall. So they're getting the results that they want, which essentially is back to their daily activities. It's not so much the reading ad that they get, but it's the daily functions. It's reading a shampoo bottle. It's being to do the sports that they want. It's the daily activities that they had before without the inconveniences of, reaching for readers. So that's what gets them most excited. On the surgeon side, they love the fact that there's no trade-offs. So the patients get a solution without trading off visual quality. And that's something that's very exciting for them because all the current solutions, potential solutions, have some kind of trade-off. And this is safe, it's effective, without the trade-offs.
So when will patients have access to this treatment?
So next year we start our clinical trials in the U.S. So we're excited about that. Puts us in a path to potentially have this available at the end of 2027 in the U.S. It'll be commercially available at the end of next year outside the U.S. Probably end of next year, early 2026.
Okay, well, my next question was going to be about your milestones. It sounds like you've got some really exciting ones coming up here in the next couple of years. Let's talk about fundraising. We're here at OIS. There's investors all around us. So what are you asking for? What are you looking to raise right now?
So we're in our Series B2 round of capital raise. We're raising $16 million, and that's going to fund, and we've raised 2/3 of that. That'll fund the 510K. So next year we're filing our 510K as a technical file, which is a big milestone. And we kick off our clinical trials in the U.S. and outside the U.S. And those funds will help us reach those critical milestones, which are key inflection points for our company, and put us on the path to commercialization and bring this device into the U.S. That's our priority.
Okay, sounds terrific. Well, congratulations on all the success you guys have achieved so far. We'll be looking forward to having access to this treatment myself here in the coming years.
Yeah, we'll get you lined up. I'm right there with you. So.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alex.
All right, thank you.
My distinguished guest today is Dr. Houman Hemmati, co-founder and chief medical officer at Optigo Biotherapeutics. And Dr. Hemmati actually joined us about a year and a half ago on the podcast, giving us an update on the work that they're doing in retinal medicine. And at that time, you explained to us that what you're doing is taking the best performing intravitreal drugs and trying not to improve the efficacy of the drug, but rather keep the duration, extend that to be longer. So thanks for dropping in and giving us another update.
Yeah, Carey, thanks so much for the invitation to chat. And since we last spoke, we've made a tremendous amount of progress at Optigo. And like you mentioned, we've taken aflibercept, which is the parent molecule of Eylea, and created new molecules based on aflibercept, which are bispecifics. One end still binds to VEGF, the protein that causes neovascularization in the retina in wet AMD and diabetic retinopathy, etc. And we've created the other end that binds to different components of the vitreous, different proteins such as hyaluronic acid or albumin or type 2 collagen. Back then, this was a lot of aspirational work, and we were working on creating those molecules, validating those molecules, purifying them, etc. And since that time, I'm very proud to say that we've made enormous progress and have a lot to share today.
Awesome. Congratulations. Well, let's talk about what data have you generated?
Yeah, so the first thing we did is created a panel of molecules that are bispecifics that bind to each of those three targets at different affinities, the weak, medium, and strong affinities, and tested them in pharmacokinetic models, injected them into rabbit eyes, and tested at different points in time compared to regular Eylea or aflibercept, how long they stay in the eye, right, to measure pharmacokinetics or intravitreal residence time. And what we found was that our best performing molecules actually were able to extend the half-life by over 4 times compared to Eylea and increase the area under the curve, so the total exposure by about 7-fold compared to Eylea, something that I think exceeded even what our own intent was when we began this program.
Wow, that is incredible. So let's talk about what would that mean for patients in terms of their injection schedule?
I'm glad you asked about injection frequency, because in order to determine that, we needed to show that the efficacy matches the pharmacokinetics. So we did a second experiment, which is a rabbit VEGF model, injected VEGF into rabbit eyes alongside our drugs, and we had a control of Eylea as well, and we wanted to see how long does the VEGF, anti-VEGF activity of aflibercept bispecifics with our molecules last compared to the regular molecule. And once again, we saw a mirror image of the same pharmacokinetic curve, approximately 4-fold increase in half-life. What does that translate to in humans? Using all of our pharmacokinetics modeling, that means injection frequency every 6 months or more. Could be as long as 9 months following each injection. And that for patients, as you know, is a game changer. And by the way, this is compared to 2 milligram Eylea, regular Eylea. This is not even in comparison to the 8 milligram Eylea HD, which would presumably give an even more favorable pharmacokinetic profile.
So what's next? What are you working on leading into 2025?
Yeah, 2025 is going to be an exciting year for Optigo because we're doing a few things. Right now, we're in the process of doing final purification of our lead molecules. Now that we've selected what the leads are, we're purifying them in larger quantities. And then we're initiating in the first quarter of 2025 NHP studies. So we'll have monkey data in order to really demonstrate everything we already have, plus safety, at higher concentrations, longer duration. And I think that's the gold standard, as you know, for any intravitreal, any retinal product, is doing that at the clinical concentrations and showing that it's safe and effective. And we're excited about what we're going to show soon.
Very good. So, what do you think in terms of how long it might take to get this into the hands of clinicians?
Well, in order to get an FDA approval, it's a longer path, obviously. So once we do that, we meet with the FDA, we get alignment on all the studies we need to do, the GLP tox studies, in order to get into the clinic, do a phase 1-2 study, and we're preparing those already, as you can imagine. So just in anticipation of getting good FDA feedback. Once that's ready, we're ready to go in the clinic, and I think that's something that can happen within the next couple of years.
So finally, the big question, fundraising. It's been a rough couple years out there for fundraising in the space. So are you in a raise right now? Are you looking to raise funds?
Yes. So right now we're initiating a raise somewhere around $30 to $35 million that would get us not just to an IND, but through our first in human study and then some. At the same time, obviously, we're speaking with a handful of different strategic partners who have an interest in this because it really does address one of the biggest unmet needs in retinal therapeutics today.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like you've just made tremendous progress since the last time we sat down together.
Thank you so much, Carey. Appreciate it.
My guest today is Dr. Leanne Lavriola, a practicing ophthalmologist in Pittsburgh and president and CEO of InnSight Technology. InnSight is developing OcuCheck, a next generation device for tear fluid testing. Welcome to the OIS podcast.
Thank you, Carey. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So let's start with talking about your clinical experience, which led you to develop OcuCheck.
So as a clinician, I've always tried to look for better diagnostics in the field and to be able to give patients and physicians a roadmap into delineating the treatment needs so that we can have more consistency and better management and outcomes for patients. So the OcuCheck was a nice segue into that because there's so much potential in tear fluid biomarkers, and to provide a more accurate platform that can help guide treatment as a true passion.
So tell us about the unmet need.
So right now, what's interesting in tear fluid is that there is technology that's been introduced, but it's not robustly adopted by clinicians. And so one of the lacking features of the technology is that most of them are based on lateral flow. The lateral flow technology is very limited when their small fluid volumes are highly viscous fluid. And because of that, you can get inaccuracies in the result. So we came forward with a truly fundamentally different technology with electrochemical. Electrochemical is much like a glucose test where you can get very sensitive, highly accurate information on biomarkers. And we can not only quantify biomarkers and multiplex by putting multiple biomarkers on the same panel, but we can also then tie that into a smartphone to use AI and machine learning to give the user confidence that the values are getting are accurate and reproducible.
So tell us about the clinical trials and the data that you're seeing so far.
Yeah, so we went into clinical trials and we collected over 50 samples from patients and we tested them with all the technologies that are on the market. We looked at the exam findings, we looked at the Inflammadry, we looked at the Tracera device, and then our device. Our device for dry eye measures both osmolarity and MMP9 on the same card, and we are the first one to quantify MMP9. So not just giving above and below 40, but we can measure from 5 to 75 nanograms with very accurate precision at every level. So we would know the difference between whether a patient was 12 or 70 and be able to guide treatment. So we went into clinical trials and we looked at the results, and compared to the Inflammadry, we achieved a 70% more sensitive result using our sensor than the Inflammadry for patients.
Have you had the opportunity to collect any feedback from ophthalmologists as investigators?
Yeah, I think so. We have 3 really defined user groups. And so one is for the ophthalmologists. They're really looking for segmentation of the market. They find that there's so many choices and there's a lot of technology, but it's not helping to differentiate things like aqueous deficiency from meibomian gland. And our technology to get to that point, because not only can we use it for MMP9 osmolarity, but we can pivot to the new biomarkers coming out. For the companies, we can serve 2 purposes. We can be a companion diagnostic. We're looking at the novel therapeutics and measuring the exact biomarker that they're changing. And that actually helps a lot with giving endpoints to clinical research trials. So our device can help people segment the market for companies, define a user group who would most benefit from the therapeutic, and then look at that therapeutic over time. And the last group is patients, because not only can we do this in clinic, but our technology is meant for home use. that we can send the patient home with a packet of sensors. They can measure their dry eye at home and then come back to the physician's office and show really a snapshot of what has changed over time at different days and different hours. And that can be really giving that subjective feedback and objective feedback to the patient, because then they have like a real data to see, is the therapy they're using working?
I think that's really groundbreaking. It's very much a precision medicine type approach to being able to treat dry eye if you can identify the different patient subsets that are benefiting the most from a specific therapeutic. So that's fantastic.
Thank you, Carey.
Really impressive. So walk us ahead. What are the milestones that you're looking to achieve in the next year?
Well, thank you. And one thing that's important is that even though we are in dry eye right now and we want to get to market for dry eye because there's a commercial business need, we do want to present it as a platform technology because we have validated the sensor with things like cortisol and beta-2 and all of these other markers that can not only be important in eye health, but systemic health. Because the tear fluid can really unlock potential for neurodegenerative diseases, for autoimmune, for cancers, and even wellness.
Yeah.
And so at one hand, we're still doing a lot of R&D on the platform. We have trials that we've submitted grants to for the NIH, for the NSF, and now even the DoD. And that can bring in a lot of undiluted funds to build that platform out. But the most pressing needs for our milestone is that with funding, we would be able to optimize that collection tip for home use, finalize the prototype, and then submit to FDA so we can have an approved regulatory device get to market.
Very exciting. So lastly, let's talk about that fundraising. So I'd love to give you the opportunity to talk about what you're looking for right now in terms of a raise.
So we know that we need $1.4 million to finalize that prototype, get through the FDA, and do those clinical trials that they would look for. So with that amount of funding, we want to be super capital efficient, and we feel that we can actually target that market and make a big impact to replace the current devices on the market.
Well, congratulations. I'm excited to watch your progress as you move along.
Thank you, Carey.
Pleased to welcome the CEO and co-founder from PulseMedica, Dr. Katchinskiy, to the OIS podcast today. PulseMedica is developing methodologies for imaging and treating vitreoretinal conditions. So a warm welcome to you, Mia.
Thank you, Carey, for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're excited to hear what you guys are up to. So in May of this year, PulseMedica announced that you had raised $12 million to accelerate the clinical validation of your innovative floater imaging and treatment device. So tell us more about the unmet need in that space.
Okay. So floaters is really an overlooked unmet need in the marketplace. It is actually one of the chief complaints by patients to optometrists and ophthalmologists. And in fact, 52% of the population have floaters. And out of those, about 5 to 10% have what's called severe floaters. And today, there's no effective way to do imaging and referrals and then treatment that's a non-invasive option. The only options available today are really what's called a vitrectomy, which is a surgical procedure to remove the vitreous, so remove the floaters from the vitreous. And that procedure carries risks of infection and risks of damage to the retina, the posterior capsule. And so we're trying to develop a treatment that is non-invasive.
So tell us how your technology improves upon what's currently being done today.
So essentially, we're building the world's first 3D image-guided laser treatment system. So first of all, there's an imaging component that is able to image these floaters in 3 dimensions in real time to understand where they're located inside the eye, what's their quantification in terms of what's their size, what's their shape, how do they move. And then that provides doctors with information that they could use to both diagnose and then provide referral. And then the second piece is using that imaging technology to deliver a femtosecond laser treatment to actually remove them very precisely within the vitreous without damaging anything like the lens or the retina.
So tell us about your development progress so far.
So we're focusing on 2 areas right now. One of them is the imaging and the other portion is the treatment. On the imaging side, we have 2 clinical sites running, and the purpose is to actually go and try and acquire images of different kinds of floaters within the population to understand what does floaters even look like from different individuals. I've mentioned 52% of the population have floaters. but nobody really knows what do they look like, how do they behave, how big are they, what the distribution is like. And so that's one of the goals for the study, and that study actually informs us in terms of how do we build diagnostic tools out of it, and then how do we build our treatment tools. At the same time, we're doing all of the preclinical work necessary to initiate our first in-human treatment. And so we're understanding what is the safe femtosecond laser parameters that are to deliver into a human eye without damaging the retina or the lens. So we're doing all that preclinical work, as well as understanding what are the optimal scan parameters, laser energies that we can deliver to eliminate these floaters effectively. And the goal is really to take both imaging and treatment portion and then move towards a first-in-human treatment study and then eventually commercialize, of course.
So in addition to all of this really impressive work you're doing on the R&D side, you've also been busy building a company and investing back into the organization. And actually, this past year and for the third year in a row, PulseMedica made the list of best workplaces for startups in Canada. So tell us more. What do you think about is special about working at PulseMedica?
Yeah, so first of all, I love the fact that you said building a company versus building a product. And that's actually what we're doing. We're trying to really build an organization that can bring this device to the market and commercialize it. And for that, you need a team. And really, without a team, in our view, there's no company. And so we're investing a lot of energy into building our people, building our team, providing opportunities for growth. And we believe that if our team is happy and they're doing the things that they really love doing, then it really performs at their best. And then therefore, the company really benefits from that. So we're putting a lot of energy into that. Great work environment, great culture. So that's a big effort that we're doing.
How many employees do you have now?
Right now, we're somewhere around 35 full-time individuals. And then we also provide a lot of co-op internship opportunities. So I think we have about 8 co-ops right now. In fact, we have something called an intern island in our company that our interns have called it their island, and it's an awesome place to work.
So is the island metaphorical, or is this a certain place in the office? I'm intrigued.
Yes, that's a good question. So there's actually like a bunch of desks that they put together, and they can sit together and kind of create their little community within the office. Yeah.
That's great. And so what are your scale-up plans just from a workforce perspective as you look to commercialize?
So likely in the coming 2 to 3 years, our growth is not going to be huge because we're mostly focusing on R&D efforts to demonstrate this technology works and bring it through our clinical studies. But of course, once that phase is complete, then we'll start looking into growing the team towards more the commercialization side. But that's still going to be about 2 to 3 years from now.
Okay. So as you look ahead in 2025, what are the most important milestones that you're looking to achieve?
Yeah, good question. So actually right now we're raising our next fundraising round. And in fact, the purpose for that round is really to initiate and complete our first in-human treatment study. We think that that's a really important milestone for us in terms of value inflection and also demonstration of the technology. And so that's really what's coming up then in 2025, 2026.
Do you want to share with us how much you're looking to raise?
Sure. So we're looking to raise a Series A of $15 million US.
Well, you're here at the right place, the Ophthalmology Innovation Source. I've seen lots of investors roaming the hallways here today. So good luck to you on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing those plans. Really excited about that technology and the potential advancements in clinical care that could mean to both providers.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
So listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to Ion Innovation. Subscribe to the OIS podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we encourage you to watch the video version on the OIS YouTube channel as well. I'm your host, Carey Powers. We're filming a lot more episodes today from the OIS conference, so be on the lookout for those. Thanks again for joining us.